All right, welcome to the Nathaneal podcast. Today we have a special guest. Um, First time we've met actually. Um, Kiara from Twitter. Hello, Kiara.
Hey there, Nathaniel. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you. Super
Cool.
excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for hopping in, really. Um, so one of the things that are very interesting to me is when I look in your profile, like your handle, Twitter handle is positive scripts. Mine saying something like, what's the origin of that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, so there was a Native American quote that I came across maybe 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
when I saw it, it like stopped me in my tracks because it made me realize where all of the manifestations in my life that have gone wrong
Mm.
and the ones that have gone right, where they all came from. And this quote said, "Those who tell the stories rule the world."
Wow.
And I thought about it like there are so many people in this world who say things like, "Oh, this is just the way life is," and they'll say it as fact and
Hmm.
truth.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, they're actually beliefs, and they're beliefs that are very often rooted in societal conditioning,
Mm.
like programming from childhood, from
Yeah.
religions, from authority figures, from parents, and they're all beliefs and stories that have been touted as truth, so much so that people have adopted them as programs. And
Right.
so I've really been challenging myself and others and my clients to really
Mm.
think about what are the stories you're telling yourself,
Mm.
because whatever the story is, that's what's creating your reality. And so if you don't have a reality you like, then let's, rather than looking at just taking action to change the reality, look at first what is the thought that is behind that.
Mm.
Because if you don't look at the thought and the belief and the story that you're telling yourself,
Mm.
then how can you expect to see a different change?
Right.
Because you're going to always say, well, that's just how life is.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
is it how life is? Or, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where it all just began. So I started to think about like, if we can change our stories, then it could become like a prescription. Like, here's
Mm.
a new story. So
Right.
I like to do like affirmations, and part of that is like a healing process. So people might say, oh, I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise, and just say, oh, it doesn't work.
Right.
But there's a whole process to being able to reprogram that story. So
Hmm.
there's the scripts that I create as prescriptions. Sometimes they have the clients go through different levels of emotions. So you might go
Mm.
from despair to anger and
Mm.
just start to work to change that story, because you can't really go from complete negativity to complete positivity. That's
Yeah.
a big jump. And
Yeah.
I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but in a nutshell, to make a long story short, the power and strength of your reality is all fueled by your story. So
Right. So is it somewhat like kind of like a vision? Would you say it's something like that? So
yes, I
creating a
believe
vision.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And so some people can use like a visual cue for their visions, like vision boards. And I think that's awesome. And for some of us, like it just depends on your learning style, of course, too.
Hmm.
So if like you're a visual learner, maybe visions like in the picture form can work for you.
Right.
But for me, I'm a word person,
Okay.
and I love playing with words. I love
Okay.
writing. I love reading.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so for me, the way I do it is just speaking to myself, and
Yeah, yeah.
that self-talk, and that's how it works
For
really
sure,
well
for
for
sure.
me.
I totally get that. And I think it's very, I think it's true that you can kind of like reprogram yourself by just speaking because I remember there's this, I was in a philosophy class and apparently people think in words. So they actually,
Mm.
there was someone, I don't know if it's a someone or like a group who said that people actually naturally think in words, right? And I don't know if you've read it like 1984 by Orwell.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So it's
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
the stories that they tell and like what they make you say changes your beliefs and
Yeah.
your behavior basically just because of the words
Yes.
itself. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Absolutely. There's definitely power in words. And it's interesting because with English, it's kind of like you can play around with it, because
yeah,
certain words, like they literally, when you look at like the origin of it, you can see very clearly how this can be a very powerful thing
Yeah.
or a disempowering thing.
Mm.
And so there are many times where like I'll read something like, for example, in the Bible, and I'll say
Hmm.
to myself, oh, I see that word here, but I'm really curious, what was the origin of that word
Right.
they wanted to use there? And so if like you go back to like the original word, the root of the language that it was originally written in,
Yeah.
sometimes the meaning is different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
you look at just the way you're ingesting things, it's like, let me really start to be aware of how I'm speaking, because the way
Right.
I'm speaking could be setting me up for failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
don't really want to have that much of a struggle. So it's like, let's just take it back to the beginning.
Right. And I think it also kind of reflects, actually, I wrote a newsletter about this like a week ago, about how it's not only a self-talk that, like, the self-talk is not only good for you, it's also actually good for others, and not in a motivation way, because the way I firmly believe this, that the way you treat yourself is the way you would treat others too. So if you treat yourself with
Mhm.
contempt, like, disciplinarian, authoritative, like, you kind of like bully yourself to do something and then slack off after, that's also what you expect other people to do. Like, that's how you talk to your family members or your friends. It's like when they're slacking off, you whip them, and then like, yeah, well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. You kind of touched on the point that I was kind of making earlier, where you are creating your reality
Right.
based on your beliefs and your thoughts. And so if you have a belief that, let's say, for example, that people are assholes, like here's a perfect example. I used to work with somebody who had this belief that people who don't return shopping carts back to their shopping cart like parking spot
Right.
are assholes. And it's so funny because almost every week, this person would have a news story about this new place he went to, and the person didn't have the shopping cart put away. And then another parking lot where someone's car got hit by a
Right.
random stray shopping cart. And I was like, out of all the people I've ever worked with, this person has the most stories and the most examples of how people do not return shopping carts to their proper parking space. And I was like, I personally have never even
Thought
really
about
given it much thought.
it.
Yeah. And I was like, this is just yet again another example of how your stories are creating more and more of whatever it is that you like or don't like. And
Hmm.
so when you are giving your attention to something, it's literally giving it energy and
Right.
it's
Right.
feeding more of it. And it's easy to say it's outside of me. It's just that's just how it is. That's
Hmm.
just the reality, Kiara. Don't you see it? And
Yeah.
then if I look, I'll see a completely different reality because my
Right.
lens is it has a different filter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
For sure.
so I've challenged that person, and after a certain point, I think he was getting a little annoyed with me. But I was challenging him, like, really look at your perspective, because there's some interesting thoughts there that you
Yeah.
have. And when you really start to just kind of detach the judgment from it,
Hmm.
it's easier to mold and shift it into something new. But when
Right.
you have a lot of judgment, it's too firmly rooted within you to kind of really
Yeah.
look at it. And so I get it why it's hard for people to move past certain triggers and certain beliefs.
For
But it
sure.
is possible.
Yeah. And have you ever thought, like, I don't know if we could share this, but like, do you think that he has something against that, because he had an event in the past where maybe someone who treated him badly didn't like return a shopping cart? Because I remember the story. I forgot what he like. A woman was, yeah, right. A woman didn't like became a um a glutton, so she didn't stop eating, because when she was eating and then she stopped, her father went in the house, and then her father said, your mother's dead. So she suddenly associated like stopping eating to tragedy, because she was a child and she thought that if I stop
Mhm.
eating, someone will die. And so she just became like,
Wow.
she just became overweight and had all these problems, because she just didn't stop eating. She thought that she should eat all the
Wow.
time. So do
Yeah.
you have you ever, like, that person, do you think that she actually had like um a negative experience like that, or have you like asked him or something?
I never did ask him like what was the root event that created that belief, but I'm pretty sure, like almost 99.9% sure that there was something. So, and that's the way beliefs work, right? Like
Yeah.
nothing is created just randomly or in a vacuum. I think babies are kind of born like a blank slate,
Mm.
and there's a lot of debate about that in the psychology community, but
Yeah.
usually babies they come into the world, right? And they have
Mm.
no experience with shopping carts. They have no experience with um, food. They
Yeah.
they just know when I'm hungry, I cry and I get my needs met, or maybe
Yeah.
not. But as they grow up, they say that by the age of 7, you have most of your beliefs are like formed within your
Wow.
subconscious mind. And you might not be able to consciously like identify, oh, I believe X about Y,
Mm.
but you have a subconscious understanding of how the world works.
Mm.
And then you spend the rest of your life kind of like deprogramming that because
Yeah.
it's not going to serve you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, then maybe like at the age of 5 or 4, something might have happened where maybe he saw his parents do something, or
All right.
maybe, like you said, the woman had an experience where that tragic event happened. And so without even realizing it, we come to associate certain things to specific outcomes. And it might not even have anything to do with it, but that's the power that beliefs can have over you. And the other interesting thing about beliefs is that they're designed to perpetuate. So
Mm.
if you think a thought over and over and over, it becomes harder and harder and harder to change it. And
Right.
then it becomes more and more confirmed. And then you get that confirmation. So that's the challenge to the whole idea behind why do you think the way you think, and it's not so easy to just say, well, just change it,
Yeah.
just change
Yeah.
your beliefs. So
Yeah. It isn't that easy. I think a lot of people, the problem with a lot of people too, who tell you just change your beliefs is because they don't also empathize with the fact that those people who have like solid beliefs are just in a way they're trapped in that belief already. And so you can't just say get out of the trap. It's not that easy. It's like a long winding process. But if you were to, okay, let's take the example of the woman that like sudden like was eating and then she associated stopping eating with tragedy. What would you how would you like reframe that story for her?
so there's a couple of different things I would do. I wouldn't necessarily probably start with reframing the story, because what I've found is that when people have a belief, especially if
Mm.
it's been going on for so long, where it's that deeply rooted, just telling them, hey, this is how you change your belief, that
Mm.
is a strategy, but it's not necessarily going to take root. So what
Right.
we'd probably first have to do with her is identify, what does the food represent? And
Mm.
it likely will be safety, security, and
Mm.
a core belief there that the food represents.
Mm.
So if we get to the core of it, it's probably that she feels unsafe and unstable, or maybe that she feels like she is the one who controls other people's realities.
Mm.
So we probably have to get to whatever that core belief is, and
Mm.
then identify, how do you feel in your body when you think about that
Mm.
story, that belief?
Right.
What does that feel like? And
Right.
then she might say, oh, it feels like unworthiness. That might be the core of it. Or it could be something like, I can't have what I want because people I love just abandoned me, or I
Wow.
feel um neglected, or something like
Mm.
that. There's a very core belief somewhere,
Mm.
and that core belief is causing a very strong negative emotion. So the
Mm.
first thing we have to do is really identify that emotion and work on fully feeling it and
Right.
then releasing it.
Okay.
Because a lot of people want to deny their emotions, they want to run away from them, they want to escape them, they want to bypass them, they want to ignore them and say, let's take our emotions out of it. But this is the problem. When you ignore or resist or
Yeah.
deny or numb or try to escape, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it does
Yeah.
not go away. It keeps manifesting itself in different situations, different circumstances with different people. And so the only way this pattern will stop is if you first identify, what is it within me that I'm holding?
Yeah.
What beliefs must I have to be feeling this way, to be
Mm.
feeling neglected, to be feeling unworthy, to be feeling abandoned?
Mm.
And once we can figure out how to make you feel safe
Mm.
and okay and
Yeah.
feel loved and worthy anyways in that
Mm.
feeling, and you learn how to relax, then we can begin to look at the story and then
Right.
say, okay, now what would you like to believe instead?
Okay.
You would like to believe in your worthiness, right? Okay, so let's try that on. How does it feel when you say, I am worthy?
I
Oh, you still
see.
feel anxiety? Okay, let's work on that anxiety now. Because now
Right.
you're going up the emotional scale. So
Gotcha.
I think that's the approach. It's like a two-pronged. It's like not just mindset, but it's also emotional regulation. And being
Yeah.
able to identify those two pieces is, I think, where people get kind of messed up because they just want to go on YouTube and get motivational
Right.
videos and David
Without
Goggins yelling at
addressing.
them. And right. And that's so it's, it has its time and place, but I think this is why the world is not yet millionaires and billionaires, because we can
Right.
all consume those motivational videos, but
Yeah.
they're not really getting to the core of the issue, which is a
Mm.
unique thing,
Mm.
because you can tell anybody, here's the blueprint to $1 million, or here's the blueprint to your high school weight, or, a perfect healthy size.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without this understanding of how they're thinking and how their beliefs are linked to their results,
Mm.
without that understanding and also learning how to calibrate their emotional system and their state,
Mm.
that then it's just words. It's
Yeah.
just not going to really do it for you.
Yeah. I totally get that. I was actually in the same position, if you don't mind me sharing. Um, so my story, I said this a million times, shared it because I really, it was hard for me to move out of it. And I think that um, maybe you have some insight right now, especially it's my first time talking to a therapist, actually. But, uh, so my father left before I was born. I was an accident child, and my mother was a she was ashamed of an accident child. Not completely like she wanted to abandon me, but she was like she didn't want people to know that she was pregnant out of wedlock. In the Philippines, it's kind of like really frowned upon because we're a Catholic country. Like we pride ourselves to be Catholics, and so it's really frowned upon to be a single mom and you have a child out of wedlock. And so no, with that, she was also like a busy woman. She was studying law and she's now a lawyer. And growing up, she was always busy. She was always away. So I was always like just alone. I was with my other family members, like my grandmother, my cousins, right? But I kind of always like I never had a parental figure in my life. Like she was a parental figure because she would like my mother would tell me, you know, this is what you should be when you grow up. You should be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. That's what she told me. Um, and you should be disciplined. You should do this. You should do that. But no one really kind of like gave me care in a way. And it was just all forward, but not nurture in a way. It's like there's no care in, and then there's a lot of hatred in the family too. There's a lot of repressed anger and trauma, and um, it was really hard for me growing up to process that because I didn't know what to do in life. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act. I mean, especially I didn't have a father. Everyone around me were like most of my family members were women, and I didn't know how a man should act. Like I didn't know what should I do. But it I continued moving forward, and it actually manifested in different ways, like my trauma. I hurt a lot of girlfriends, and I talked to a guidance counselor, and he actually told me, is like, you keep on looking for girlfriends because you're looking for the love that your mother never gave. Well, he didn't tell me that, but I was the one who kind of like came up with that. He just helped me go through it. And if I didn't understand that, like if I didn't go deep into okay, I need love and I need someone to love me. That's why I'm doing all these things. I'm doing all the negative things that I'm doing. It's not really that I'm a bad person. It's just that I have needs that weren't addressed. If I didn't understand that, I wouldn't have listened to David Goggins. David Goggins is a
Mm-hmm.
big inspiration for me. But if David Goggins came into my life and I didn't understand that before, I would have never like had motivation, that drive, because I would always go back to whenever I hurt people. And it still comes up when I hurt people, when I offend people. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like, I had these beliefs that I'm just an accident. I was put into this world to hurt people, to ruin people's lives, because that's kind of like how I saw it. I was put into this world, and my mother didn't like me because I was a nuisance. My father left me because I was a nuisance. And so when people kind of like reject me and people don't like me, I feel like I'm a nuisance. I'm useless. But since I was able to analyze that, and maybe there's still more, and I think there's more, of course, like there's more to explore about myself. Yeah, the story kind of shifted. So yeah. That's my story right
Wow,
there.
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing that you had the wherewithal to identify that core belief that might be holding you back and the willingness to even explore that. That's really powerful because there's a lot of people that will say, "Oh, no, it didn't affect me."
Right.
Just man up,
Yeah, yeah.
toughen up, get thicker skin.
Yeah.
And I think that those types of responses are appropriate depending on the situation. Like if you're
Mm,
in a survival mode, then that can really be helpful to get you going, to be
mm,
able to survive.
mm.
But there comes a point where, and I think this happens like as we naturally evolve and grow, when the more we live and the more experiences we have, we start to become more and more aware that there's more. Like you said, there's more that
Yeah.
I might need to discover. And some people get caught up in this trap of self-development, like, oh, I need to figure out all my flaws and fix them all and just become perfect and master myself and self-mastery. I see this a lot on Twitter or X, for example. And the idea behind it is valid. Like we want to become the best version of
Yeah.
ourselves, and that's cool. But then there becomes a downside to it where, like you had said, there becomes this shame associated with anything that's less than ideal. And
Mm,
you begin to think like, oh, I am not good enough because
yeah.
I got angry. Like, how
Yeah.
dare me? We have these we have a very judgmental view of negative emotions,
Mm,
and it's just, I think the whole conversation right now about mental health and the mental health pandemic that we're in right now is because a lot of people have a lot of unexamined judgments against certain emotional states based on
mm,
feedback from whomever,
yeah.
wherever they got it from. And I think rather than looking so much at the where did it begin, I
Yeah.
think we should start to look more at how is it serving me to continue to think this way?
Wow.
Because these beliefs are valid. It's valid to feel anger. It's valid to
Mm,
feel um, whatever.
yeah.
And it's okay to feel that. It's okay. It's there's not a gold star you're going to get at the end of the day if you never got mad. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
someone might want to tell you that, like in schools. I remember one of my little sisters were in school, they would get gold stars for being on good behavior.
Yeah.
And I used to get awards in school for being quiet. And my
Mm.
teachers used to say to my mom, "Oh, I wish we had more Kiaras because I never caused trouble." But then when I got to high school, it became a problem because I was so shy. I never spoke up for myself. I
Right.
was bullied. I was
Wow.
kind of like I was looked at as a mute, like, is she
Mm,
mute? Does she have a voice? And I
wow.
did have a voice, but I was so afraid of expressing myself because
Yeah.
I didn't want to say the wrong thing because I
Right.
was internally judging myself. Like I have to be perfect. I have to be this model child. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? That's too much pressure, first of all. And second of all, it
Right.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Perfection is done. You cannot
Mm,
improve on perfection because it's perfect.
wow.
So I think the better way to look at it is I am imperfectly perfect. Like I'm evolving and I'm
Yeah.
getting more and more refined.
Right.
And
Right.
I might think I'm good now, but there's more to discover.
Right.
But
Right.
right now I'm still okay with myself. And
Mm,
if you're not there, it's okay to like don't judge yourself if you don't look
yeah.
at yourself as already being okay. And so that's why the people that I would like to work with and things like to tell them is that you don't need me because you're broken. Like you don't need a coach or a
Yeah.
therapist because you're broken. It's just because you might realize there are some things that aren't serving you. There's some beliefs you might have that are holding you back from what you want. And you
Right.
recognize it's a mindset thing rather than a massive actions thing.
Yeah.
Because when you get your mind right, then the actions become
It's easy.
effortless and
Yeah.
easier. Yeah, yeah. But until then, if there's some friction, then it's better to look inside than to look outside society and say they all need to change
Right.
because my
Right.
life is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I mean, that's this is, I don't know your opinion on Jordan Peterson, but one of his things, like one of his chapters in his books really impacted me a lot, because he also helped me go through that process of healing and, you know, building myself. He said, like, um, it's like, fix your room before you criticize the world. So it's like, because the problem, if you just say what you mentioned, you blame the world, be like, oh, there's something wrong with the world, there's something wrong with the world, there's something wrong with the world. The problem with that is there's so much of the world that you can't fix, right? It's like, it's just too big for you to fix. And I see like a lot of people, and no offense to people who's watching, but I see a lot of people who are trying to fix the world, but they don't realize that you can't really fix the world. And the best thing that you could do is to improve yourself, and in effect, like, inspire others to do the same, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I forget who said it, but there's a quote that goes, when I was younger, I wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
But then when I became wise, I just wanted to change myself, something to
Right.
that effect. And I think that is the key to life,
Yeah.
like peace of mind, everything, because the world is so big. And not only that, there are so many differences of perspectives, and they change. Like,
Yeah.
if you think about laws, for example, there were laws 100 years ago that now would make you laugh. Like, there was one law, like there's a bunch of laws in the United States that are still in the books, but they're just like completely ridiculous. Like, there's a law, I think in Texas or somewhere down here in the South, that you can't ride your horse after 6 p.m. or something like that. And it's like, what the heck does that even mean? But I guess at some point back in the day, in the 1800s, people were riding their horses after 6 p.m. and maybe someone got hurt. I don't know.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was a law. And so if you think about it, society evolves, people evolve. So how can we possibly change other people?
Right.
That's why I'm not a huge fan of saying things like, we've got to ban things or we've got
Mm.
to control the masses. I'm not a big
Mm.
fan of that, because when you look at it like that, then you're really saying people don't have the ability to self-regulate. You're
Mm.
taking away their
Right.
abilities
Yeah.
to understand how to change themselves, the fact that they can change themselves, and also the onus now becomes on somebody else to make them feel better.
Mm.
So this is why people become very, hooked on like social programs coming to rescue them, or
Mm.
political figures rescuing people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think there's a time and place for assistance, but I think there becomes an over reliance upon
Mm.
others outside of themselves, because they kind of just give up and say, well, what else can I do? I'm
Yeah.
just one person. Who am
Right.
I? I'm nobody. But you are somebody. You
Yeah.
just got to figure out who you are and really lean into that, like lean into those strengths. And who knows what you can create if you look at it that way, as I'm a creator, and
Right.
it's my job to create something in this life.
Yeah. Taking personal responsibility is your way to kind of like live your life fully free, I think. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of counterintuitive, because like some people, I read this from a book, one of the best books I've read actually. It's like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark
Mm-hmm.
Manson.
Mark Manson. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he talked about how even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. So he talks about fault versus responsibility. Most people think that, okay, since I didn't screw up the world, I shouldn't be, or like, how do you say this? Like my life, since I live in, I don't know, like you mentioned Texas or wherever, and the laws are like this, and I was oppressed because of that, I have no responsibility in my life. Like they should fix me, because they were the reason why I'm in this state. But
Right.
it's like he talked about how when there's a baby in your door, it's not your fault that the baby was there. So you didn't choose the baby to be there, but now it's your responsibility what happens to the baby. Whether the baby lives, you adopt them, or you give it to someone else, or you throw it out the window, what you
Right.
choose. It's the same with your life. It's like there's a lot in the world that is out of your control, and maybe there are a lot of discrimination against you, but it's not your fault, but it's your
Yeah.
responsibility to live your life and look for ways to make it better, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And there's a post I'm gonna make I'm not sure if it'll be this week or next week, but I already know it's going to be controversial, and I'm not looking for controversy, but what
Right.
I am really interested in doing is I'm interested in challenging the narrative that is the status quo, that is mass consciousness,
Mm,
that is telling people to think a certain way that is not serving them. And so
yeah.
you can tell me all day long, yeah, Kiara, this is the truth though. You're just you're just blind. You can tell me that all day long, and I don't discount that. I'm not here to
Yeah.
invalidate that. But what I am here to do is challenge you to think differently and take your
Right.
own power back. So
Mm,
one of the posts I want to make, for example, it's about I am a female. Obviously, I'm African American, Black,
right.
but I do not like to be in circles that are only for Black people or
Mm,
Black women. And I've
wow.
seen them, people have reached out to me, but I personally feel that that is a limitation I do not want to place on myself
Right.
because my exposure is limited, my ability to impact people is limited, and also it's a view that I am an other, and I don't view myself as an other.
Right.
But if other people want to view me as an other, that's on
That's
them.
fine. Yeah, that's
But
fine.
yes, I will invite myself to whatever table, invite
Yeah,
myself into whatever space, and I will serve anyone that is willing to
that's fantastic.
seek out my services. I will not limit myself to a niche of just women who look like me. That's to me, that's a little bit silly. And I used to
Yeah.
have there was a coach I was working with for a while, and she was like, "Oh, it would be really great if you just served women." And I was like, "Why?" And that this person was insistent that I work with women. And for a while I did that, and that it just felt so inauthentic to me,
Mm,
especially when there was one day where a friend from high school reached out to me and she said, "Hey, Kiara, do you work with men? Because my brother could really use your services." And
mm,
I told her no. I
wow.
said, no, I don't work with men because I don't even know if I give her a reason, but I said, no, I don't work with men, but I can find someone who can work with your
Mm,
brother. And I don't know what happened after that. I referred her to a few people, but after that, it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And after that, I
mm,
stopped. I stopped just
right.
putting in my bio, like, I help women. I help everybody. If you're
Yeah.
open to transformation and you want it, I can help you. My frameworks are not just for Black women, they're for people,
For everyone. Yeah,
people
we're
who
all
are willing to
humans.
take. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're willing to work on yourself, I can be, I can help you.
I mean, especially with the internet, I mean, it's kind of limiting to really put your niche into just a specific person because I mean, like right now, I'm in Asia, I'm in the Philippines, and you're in America. Like we're completely in different side of the globe, yet we're here talking.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of silly to just think of one specific person, you know?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I think the person's idea, it was rooted in a good place. Like she was like, your client avatar is someone who looks like you. And I was like, okay, got it. But that's the thing about life discoveries. It's like you can try on different beliefs, like different
Right.
hats, like it doesn't have to become so rigid, like this is
Mm.
my Bible and I will stick to it no matter what. No, like try it on, see if it works for you
Mm,
because there is no one size fits all
for
anything.
sure.
There,
Yeah.
there's millions of therapists, there's millions of
Right.
cars. I mean, maybe not millions of cars, but there's tons of different makes and models and different clothing brands, different sodas, like
Yeah, yeah,
different ice cream flavors. So why should there be one belief on anything, even
for
including
sure.
how to run a business? So just try what works for you. And if it doesn't resonate, that's okay.
Yeah, it's
You don't need
fine.
to get the pitchforks and ban somebody. Just move on.
Yeah. I posted a tweet about this that kind of hits the spot in terms of Twitter. Instead of saying how to, say how I, because when you say how to, I mean everyone has Google and ChatGPT. That's the logical reasoning, you know. You can just search how to.
Right.
But when you say how I, it becomes like, okay, this is what I did. You can try it
Yeah.
out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it would work for you. It's just what worked for me.
Right.
But when you say how to, it's like the ultimate truth. This is how you do it.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't work that
Yes.
way.
Yeah. And I think ultimates are very dangerous because you
Yeah.
begin to get into the realm of righteousness and
Wow.
zeal and
Mm,
dogma and
mm,
doctrine, and people become very argumentative in that space.
wow.
And
Yeah.
I am just here for a dialogue. I'm here for an exploration and a discoveries.
Yeah.
I'm not really here to argue. And there was a post that went viral a couple weeks ago that I made, and there was so much argument over what I posted. And I was talking about how I had two divorces, and so many people were kind of bashing and hating on it. But I noticed I kind of like had this out of body experience. Like
Yeah.
rather than getting upset, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little, I felt a certain type of way at first. But then I
Mm,
took like a 50,000 foot view and said, okay, who are the people and that are commenting that hate?
Yeah.
And I noticed it was a very specific demographic. It was people in Nigeria, and they were mostly men.
Wow.
Like 90% of them were men hating
They
on
were
my
disagreeing.
post. So talking about, yeah. They
Mm.
well, they didn't even read the whole thread. It was like a
They
full
just did
thread
the
talking about
hook.
my discoveries. Yeah. It just, I mean, maybe it's my naivete, because I mean, my hook was just, I've had 2 divorces, and then under that I put, here's what I learned.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think they just saw that first line and said,
They're like,
"Oh, did you consider that you might have been the problem?" And I was like, obviously, that's why I'm writing this. Did you read the whole thing? And so, anyways, it made me really think that these types of people who have a belief that women should be a certain way, they're coming from a very heavy Christian environment. They
mm,
have a very traditional point of view, and
mm,
that helped me kind of reframe the whole like idea of, when you are putting your ideas out there, and you have to be considerate of the fact that people might not like it, but it doesn't
mm.
have to stop you from still putting out a message. And so rather than
Right.
me saying, here are 10 rules of marriage that you need to know, I instead just said, like what you had said, I put, this is what I've
I
learned.
learned,
These are
yeah.
some tips that I've experienced that has helped me. And
Mm,
hopefully it can help you too, to prevent
yeah,
these types of issues.
yeah.
So yeah, I think reframing it back to your own personal experience is what helps set us apart from like the bots and the chat GPTs and all of that.
Yeah, and it's also more interesting for me. It's like, because when I read those tweets, it's like just very generic. Again, it's like a robot. You can just chat GPT could write that for you, right? But when you
Absolutely.
say
Yeah.
when you say like how it becomes, you can even go really in depth on on the experience that you had. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just copy paste, it was from the heart, it was not from
Right.
just reading and putting in. It's like really
Right.
from your heart. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I think this AI revolution is so, I view it as like a very promising future.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I know some people can abuse it, and it could be kind of scary to think about the possible ways it can go south, but
Yeah.
there are so many ways it can enhance us. But I think at
Mm.
the core of everything, we all want a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot have a human experience if you're just looking for information, because
Mm.
information is everywhere. Information
Yeah.
is like on Google, whatever. You can find 10 steps to have a perfect love life. And but when you have somebody who's been to the trenches and found a way to come out of it and
Yeah.
become this person who has an amazing marriage, then you can say, wow, I
Yeah.
know for a fact that can work because somebody actually did it. It
Yeah.
wasn't just
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
bot telling me, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think this could go back to what you're saying, or well, the stories in a way, like hearing stories, what you mentioned about the quotes, like, sorry, who tells stories control the world, I think, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Those who tell us
Right.
stories rule the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's something like that where when you hear stories from other people, and I think that's how I learned my life. David Goggins' autobiography, obviously, like very powerful for me because he had the same experience as I had, and he didn't
Mhm.
say, in a way, because he said it in a story. Of course, he tells people, get up, run, and
Mhm.
he tells this, but then in the end, he said,
Stay hard.
yeah, yeah, stay hard, you do you, right? Like he still says,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't care if you're, fat or you're a woman or you're this or you're that. All I'm saying is discover yourself, like, and
Yes.
his story is like that. And that's why I really resonated with it because it wasn't like just, okay, I'm a piece of shit and okay, I'm
Yeah.
successful. It was like, okay, I'm a
Right.
piece of shit. I'm rising up. Fuck, I get fat again. Oh, I'm rising up. Oh shit, I got injured. Oh, it's like it's not
Yeah.
always gonna be up, 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 and then
Yes.
he's perfect, right? He still screws
Yeah.
up.
Yes. Yes. And that's the beauty of like embracing our humanism, our
Yeah.
humanity. Like you understand that everyone wants to go straight to the top, overnight success. They want to go viral overnight. They want to have a million, 10 billion in their bank account tomorrow. Everyone wants the perfect marriage tomorrow. They want everything now.
Yeah.
And that instant gratification, like we all want that. I get it. But
Mm.
the thing is, there is so much to be discovered in the unfolding, in the
Wow.
journey. Like there's so much juice and like richness that you can extract from your
Mm.
unique journey. And so
Mm.
if you have a non-linear path that goes upside down, around, backwards, that is what people might call failure, and they might view it that way, like, oh man, I'm failing again, or oh man, I suck, or
Yeah.
they tell themselves stories about why that is not okay, why that's inappropriate. But what if instead we start to embrace that, like, wow, I'm gonna have a hell of a story when I finally get to the end.
Right,
Like, this is
right.
gonna be epic. And I think that, like, that journey that David Goggins has had, it's what makes it so much more inspirational.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
found a lot of value in it because he didn't just get overnight success. And
Right.
to me, people who have overnight success, it first of all, it's not relatable, but secondly, it is a myth.
Right.
It's a myth that they had overnight success.
Yeah.
It just looks like that to us because we did not see the 10 years
Yeah.
pre-journey,
Right.
pre-David Goggins, before he was David
Yeah, yeah.
Goggins. We didn't see that. And so I think those books and them going on podcasts and telling their story is so powerful because I think everyone has a gift. And
Mm,
I don't think anyone is on this planet without a purpose. But
mm.
how are you going to get to that purpose if you think you are beyond repair,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's why I think first of all, understanding you have value
Yeah.
is important. You
Yeah.
have value.
You already have
Next,
it.
how, right, exactly. You already have it. So if the premise is that you already have it, now the question becomes, what's stopping you from shining that
Right.
purpose?
Yeah.
What is stopping
The
you?
bottleneck.
Because I can almost guarantee you, yeah, the bottleneck 99% of the time is going to be what's in between your ears, your mind,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
your thoughts, your beliefs. That's what's stopping you.
Yeah, for sure. And just going back to what you're saying about overnight success, I'm guilty of that actually. I just posted something about like in 44 days, I went from zero because I recently just had closed a deal, a ghostwriting deal in X. So I do post about those things because it's the one that catches attention. You know,
Yes, yeah,
if I can, like, if I tell someone, look, I was earning $0 and I went from zero
yeah,
to 15K in 44 days, people will be attracted to my offer. All right. They'd be like, oh,
yeah,
wow, that's very interesting. But really, those 44 days were not, it wasn't like easy. And even before the
yeah.
44 days, dude, so I wrote about it. It's like how for a year before this, I was working 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. That's why actually right now here in the
Yeah, I
Philippines,
saw that post you made.
yeah, it's 1:50 a.m. here, and I'm a night shifter. I'm used to it already. That's why I can be awake. But it's like for a year, I would only have 4 hours of sleep over and over and like every day.
Uh-oh.
That's the average. I would go to university and I would like work at night and then I would do that over again. And it was just a bad experience. And I just like that drive of wanting to like, nah, I'm not gonna stay on this path. You know, if this is what means to be successful, because in a way, I was $400 was actually a lot here in the Philippines. It could actually do a
Mhm,
lot already. And I was on my way to becoming a lawyer. Like that was the plan. That was the plan that my mom had in me and for me.
mhm.
But I decided to take a leave in college and pursue this path of entrepreneurship. And yeah, I wasn't really even looking for success. I was just looking for kind of like meaning, to be proud of myself, because I wasn't proud
Right.
of myself during that time. Like in a way, people thought that I was succeeding, I was winning, but really in my mind, my soul was being sucked out of my body. Like I was just being not I wasn't being Nathaniel. I was just being the
Right.
Nathaniel for them. You know, I
Right.
wasn't being my Nathaniel. And now, thankfully, I found Twitter and I was being able to do this. But
Mhm,
also the 0 to 44 days, I was still working at that time. So I would
mhm.
still write and work at the same time before I close. I just recently quit my job. And it looks nice when you post on it. You post it like 44
Mhm.
days, but at the background, it's not really that nice. And
Yeah.
again, sorry, I'm kind of going on
No,
and on with
no.
this, but people will show you sexy, hot, attractive things on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. But
Yeah.
behind that, like they probably had like, I don't know, 1,000 selfies first to see what's the best. You know,
Right. Yeah.
they had tons of like video editing to make it the best. and they are
Right.
like go over and over again with the editing of their writing as well to make it good.
Right.
But people don't see
Highly
that.
curated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's the idea of let your mess become your message works here, because I think there, of course, there is a lot of importance on hooks and getting attention, because I was just watching a webinar from Neil Patel's agency, and they were talking about what's been working for them in the last 3 months with their content strategy. And I took a lot of gems from it. It was really cool. But one of the things they said was that humans now, I think some university, I forget the university, but humans now have a less attention span than a goldfish.
Yeah.
Less attention span than a goldfish. And I was like, this is like unbelievable, but it's true.
Yeah.
But yet we do have podcasts that go 3 hours long and people do watch them. So
Yeah.
the issue is not long form content is bad. The issue is, how do we get people's attention in the beginning to make them want to stay? And so if you have to play the game a certain way to get that, then I totally like respect it, because if you're able to deliver the transformation, the results that people want, and that's the way to do it to get them in, then I don't see any harm in that, because nobody, like we've been discussing, nobody's going to go on Chat GPT and say, hey, Chat GPT, tell me how to make my life better, because they will give you 10 steps to make your life better, but you're not going to be invested, because first of all, it's not relatable. It's not a real person. It's not an experience that they've actually gone through. It's a bot. It's about just spitting out information. So we're in the information age right now. And so in the information age, we are literally like overburdened with tons and tons of content. But the question now becomes, how do we get the value? How do we find what actually is going to work? And if you need to say that in your hook to get people in, that's fine, because your message is what's really going to matter. Your story is what's going to resonate with them, and your content is what's going to help bring that transformation. So I am all for going viral, even if it's for the wrong reasons, because at the end of the day, what matters is, are you helping them? And if you are, if the answer is yes, then hey, I am not one to judge on how you get your eyeballs.
For sure, for sure. Actually, now people are gonna know now because I'm recording, but my most viral thread, like the power of now, my hook was really powerful, and I think that's the reason why it got shared a lot. But if you look through the actual tweets, there are like tweets that have missing words. I just realized it when I posted it. When I was reading it, I was like, there are tweets like I don't know why I removed the words. I think it's because I was going to change them because the word count was not, like, it was too much. So I think I was supposed to change them, but the problem was it took me so long to upload the videos. Like, I was just waiting for the videos to upload, and I was like, I just posted it because it took so long, and it still went viral. It's like, whoa, the power of the hook, man.
Absolutely. Like I love that too, because it goes to show you, like, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have like perfect production. All you need to have is a powerful hook and a powerful message. And you had that in that thread. And I really, I liked that thread, by the way. And I think that having the missing words and the typos, it makes you more human. It's like, oh, he very clearly did not copy and paste this from Chat GPT. He did this himself. And that is what makes it more like lovable, I think. Like we want the flaws. We might think, oh no, we got to be perfect, but there's something to be said about the realness factor. Like I think that it's nice to look at pretty things sometimes, but we really want to know, is that a real person behind that perfect Instagram feed? Like, is it a real person, or is it just
manufactured?
Is it just some unattainable, manufactured vision that nobody can really live up to?
Yeah, I totally get that. And yeah, I've seen also a lot of creators have that, actually, like Dickie Bush. So I've been studying a lot of threads lately because I'm mastering the art of threads, and I see them, like, they also actually screw up with their tweets. Like, sometimes they forget also a word, or they don't bold one word and they bold others, or they don't put a space. So yeah, I think there's something about being vulnerable, or making mistakes, and I think that connects with being vulnerable. I think this, I read this somewhere, how you like babies because they're vulnerable. Actually, it's like a baby is cute because they are, they can get hurt easily. Like, imagine if a baby, of course you don't want a baby to get hurt, right? Of course
Mhm.
you would like him to be safe. But then if you really want your baby to be safe, then you would like put a plate of armor, in her, or like change her body parts to something that doesn't bleed, and
Mhm.
or I don't know, like upgrade their brain into a supercomputer so that they would already understand it. But then if you do that, it's not cute anymore. It's not lovable,
Yeah,
because
right,
the vulnerability actually gives it value in a way. It
right,
becomes
right.
valuable because of the vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I also think that with kids, especially like babies, there's there's a few factors, right? There's the vulnerability, there's also the unapologetic imperfection. Like
Mm.
kids will make a mess, they'll fart, they'll poop on themselves, they'll smell really bad, they'll be dirty as I don't know what, but you still love them. Like you still
Yeah.
want to just you look at them and you're like dismissive of their flaws. Like you say,
Yeah.
I see through all that nonsense. Like the other day, my daughter, she's 19 months. And I laugh, but I took a picture and she had on a Friday, we went out somewhere, and this is the season where all the mosquitoes are coming out. And
Yeah.
so we opened the car door at night. We were at somebody's house getting my husband buying a motorcycle. And so we got the motorcycle and we switched spots. I got out of the car,
Yeah.
went around from the passenger side to the driver's seat.
Yeah.
He got to the motorcycle to drive home. And in that 1 minute that the car doors were open, somehow a gigantic mosquito got in the car. And so as I was driving, I rolled down all the windows. I was like moving all the air around, had the
Yeah.
AC on blast because my daughter was in the backseat asleep. It was like 9 p.m. at this point. And so I was like, okay, for sure the mosquito's gone. Like there's no
Yeah.
way it could still be in this car because all this air, the papers were flying around everywhere. When we got home, I saw she had a couple of red spots in her face, and I was like, man, she still got bit. The
Right.
next day, her face looked like she was in a boxing match with Mike Tyson. Her left eye was swollen shut. Her right eye was like huge, swollen on the bottom. It she couldn't even open her left eye. She looks like I don't know if you've ever seen the Goonies, but she looks like that character. Oh, I forget his
No,
name.
I've never been seen. Okay.
Chunk, I think. Or anyway, she looked like a creature. But you know what I said? She was still beautiful to me. I said, wow, look at
Yeah.
you. You're so beautiful. And I took pictures of her and I kissed her face and I smiled and we played. And I was just like, that was proof to myself that the thing about children is they are so like lovable. They're
Mm.
so unapologetic in all of their
Mm.
flaws. And we still just look at them with so much hope and like you said, the fragility of them. And we
Yeah.
want to protect them at all costs.
Mm.
And that is a key thing that I think one of the ways to like heal ourselves is to look at our inner child and
Yeah.
see where have we abandoned that
Right.
unapologetic vulnerability and
Mm.
that imperfection and
Mm.
where can we start to reignite that and then
Yeah.
that joy because
Yeah.
I think we get as we get older we start to think that that's not good to
Yeah. We need to be
be
perfect.
right and we have to
Yeah.
be serious and
Yeah.
we
We
have to
have to
be
be
adults and
serious.
we buckle down and put your nose to the grindstone and knock out
Right.
12-hour 14-hour days and all that has a time and place but I think we cannot underestimate the power and
Of play.
the attractiveness of right the play there's
Mm.
so much power and creativity in play and that's why I love
Mm.
writing and I love the spaces on X because we can really just have fun with it
Yeah.
like
Yeah. For
there's
sure.
no pictures there's no feed there of like
Mm.
video content we have to put out with like these perfect like edited and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying like it's such a different type of thing and I
Mm.
love that the written word does not need to be perfect it's just
Mm.
the expression is what matters more and
Yeah.
that's something that I really love about kids.
Yeah. It's also actually the reason why I like when you message me, it's like, can you send me the questions? I'm like, I actually don't write questions. Literally, like this whole conversation was just always it's always like I talk about something and then something pops up in my head when you're saying something or when my guest is saying something, and then I just spit it out and then we just like have this flow. And
Yeah.
really that's my goal because my plan is to eventually go to YouTube and make videos to expand, but I want my videos to really just be authentic and not be too thinking too much of editing, and it needs to like hit like this and that, because I don't know if you know Sam Sulek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam
And
Sinek.
no, Sam Sulek, he's a fitness guy.
Oh,
No.
Oh, no, I
Oh,
don't.
okay. So there's this guy into YouTube. His name is Sam Sulek, Sulek,
Oh,
and
okay.
he just makes fitness videos and he just talks to the camera. Like he doesn't have editing. He puts a camera on, like he puts a camera on
Mhm.
like this, and then just talks to it, gives fitness advice, and works out. No editing at all. And he grew to like 1 million follower, 1 million subscribers or something.
Wow.
And
Wow.
maybe I'm not gonna reach that, but I kind of like the vibe of just doing that, like being yourself and
Yeah.
just having fun doing what you want.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you didn't have a script because this is what I tend to do. I say, okay, I'm going to talk about XYZ because this literally happened last week. I was on
Right.
another women's podcast or summit,
Mm.
and she had questions for me. And so I filled out the form. She said, what do you want to talk about? I typed in what wanted to talk, what I
Yeah.
thought I wanted to talk about. And then we get on the interview, and you know what happened? I went completely the opposite direction. I talked about something completely different, and we had a
Yeah.
great time. The
Right.
flow was amazing. Like
Yeah.
the content was amazing. The conversation was great. It was
Yeah.
really like captivating. And then at the end of it, she messaged me and was like, "Hey, so I was looking at the title, and I don't think it quite reflects what we talked about. So I came up with a new summary. What do you think? And also, do you mind coming up with a different title?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a way of doing that." But I think it's like you got to just be in the moment and have
Mm.
fun with it, because if you're not having fun, it's like I left my job because I don't want to be in a box. I don't think
Right.
anybody wants to be in a box. Like
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's good to have guidelines, but
Yeah.
to have a specific prescription of what exactly to do, I think that takes
Mm.
out the creativity of human nature.
For
So
sure. Actually, this is what I learned because my first few podcasts was like that. Like I really went deep into like questions, like deep research, looking into their backgrounds, looking at what interesting questions there would. And it just felt like while we were talking, it felt like robotic. And I didn't,
yeah.
it felt like I was interviewing someone and there was just no connection. And midway
Right.
through my first podcast, my very first podcast, when I felt that, I was like, screw the script, bro. I was like, I'm not gonna do script anymore. I'm just gonna talk to this person, have fun, and if no one views my
Yes.
YouTube, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not having fun, then why bother? What's the
Yeah,
point?
exactly. What's the
So
point?
that's why there is no prescription to success, especially as a podcaster or a creative person. Like, if you want to do a job that requires step-by-step processes, like an SOP,
Right.
then I think that type of job is what's probably going to be taken over by systems and AI.
Yeah,
But
AI.
if when you talk about like creativity, creative
Mm,
efforts like podcasting or writing books,
right.
those are efforts that I think cannot be duplicated or replicated by
But AI.
automations and AI,
Yeah.
because that's the thing that we all want. We want fun. We
Yeah.
want to go in places we've never been before. We want to have unexpected surprises and spontaneity. That's what makes life interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And this
I agree.
conversation has truly been interesting. And so I'd love to talk to you more, but I think we kind of got on off overboard with the time. But I like to end my conversations with asking their top 5 resources on like songs, just anything that comes to the top of your head, like that shape your personality. So maybe a book, maybe a song, maybe a podcast, any like creative resource for you, or maybe a creator itself.
Oh, that's so tough. Creative resources that shaped me. Hmm.
Just anything that pops in the head, you know.
Okay. So the first book I'm thinking of is Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
I loved that book
Mm.
because I just love like the Victorian British style. Like I feel like maybe in a past life I must have been somewhere in Britain, like
My girlfriend
Great
loves
Britain.
it too.
I know it. Yeah. And the other thing I liked about that book was it was challenging or starting to shine the light on societal norms and expectations that don't quite make sense. And
Mm.
that was when I began to really think like, yeah, why are we aspiring to marriage? Like,
Mm. Wow.
is that something that we actually want, or is it
Mm.
just something that society told us to do? And
Mm.
so yeah, that would be probably the first one. The second one is I love Harry Potter, so I'd have to throw that in there. I love that the idea that no matter how much darkness could be in the world, there is always power in the light, and shining
Right.
the light within yourself is the best we can do. And
Mm.
hopefully you'll have an army join you one day. Um, same in the same vein, Lord of the Rings. I
Okay.
love fantasy. Um, what else? Aside from that, I would say probably music has been the next big influence.
Mm.
So,
Any
uh,
artist or song in particular that you would think?
mm,
Just even
so I love
recent.
EDM.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, I love EDM, and Cascade is probably my favorite DJ. He
Okay.
does like progressive house.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And there's this song that I've listened to for a year. It's like since it came out in 2008, I've been playing it like on repeat constantly.
Mm.
And it's called Move For Me. I just
Okay.
love it. It's like a ethereal like kind of feel. It's a cool vibe.
Cool, cool, cool.
And yeah, I love to dance. So what else? And Michael Jackson,
Oh,
hands
okay.
down. There when I
Of
was
course.
pregnant, his song Man in the Mirror, that song moved me to tears, like boohoo crying tears. And that was when I realized like I have to change my life, because
Wow.
the job I'm in right now is not aligned to my soul's purpose, and I need
Mm.
to go more in that direction. And that song like helped me get out of that rut
Wow.
of feeling like, oh, can I do this? Who am I to do this? Like it helped push me into the idea, or this awareness, that it's not about me. It's about
Mm.
wanting to make the world a better place,
That's
literally.
yeah.
Like as corny as that sounds, that is what I'm here for. And so yeah, that was probably my biggest musical influence.
Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. So there's a lot of things that I still want to talk about, and I think we do kind of like talked about a space somehow. So guys, keep in tune with that. See if yeah.
Yeah, yeah, let's do
So
it.
we'll stay in touch, and it was a great conversation. It was really great having you, Kiara.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Nathaniel.
Yeah,
It's a lot
yeah,
of fun.
yeah. We'll see each other again, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, bye guys.
All right, take care. Bye.